Well, let's get more on the UK general election. Our teams here at BBC News are going to be bringing you all the information that you need. Let's cross to my colleague Rajini, who is in the newsroom for us. Rajini.
Yeah, Geeta, I'm not far from where you are. I'm on the mezzanine, but I think you can see the newsroom below me on the Trundle camera that we're showing you now, hopefully. And down on the newsroom, of course, is the nerve centre on any day here at BBC News, but of course, no, not more so than a general election where everybody is working at full pace. Now, I'll just tell you, Geeta's over there, that's Studio E. If you look over there, the camera's just moving in that direction, and that is the radio team there. That's my colleagues at the BBC News channel over there in the centre. That's where the news desk is, and just in the back over there are the 6 and 10 and the 1 o'clock news team, so the bulletin teams, and everybody, of course, working very hard now that that general election has been called. Now, we're up here on this floor because we're going to show you a bit more about the team's work at BBC Verify, which has really come into its own in this election campaign. If you just follow me round. Now, of course, any day of the week Verify are busy, but of course now it's all about fact-checking campaign statements, making sure that we can uncover the truth when it comes to disinformation, and also verifying social media videos and other claims and policies. Now, we're just walking past here. Last hour we spoke to Mariana Spring. She's actually on Radio 4 at the moment, but of course she's doing a lot of work around disinformation. She's got undercover voters like she had in the US election, where she's going to be doing some work around the sort of social media messaging that different types of people have, and we'll have more on that, of course, through the campaign. But let's take you to the main Verify hub. You'll be familiar with this. These are the screens where we show a lot of data and bring some of the number crunching to life. And here are some of the banks of desks where all our teams are working. A lot of people don't appear on camera but do a lot of hard work behind the scenes. Someone who does appear on camera, though, is Ben Chu. Hello, Ben.
Hello, Regina.
Formerly of BBC Newsnight. Now you are policy and analysis correspondent with BBC Verify. Now, Ben, your job during the election is about fact-checking policy statements, claims by politicians and political parties, and also costing them, working out whether these things add up or not. So there's quite a lot to get through. Yeah. Tell us what you've been working on today, because we've already had one announcement.
Yeah, well, we've had this big announcement on what the Conservatives are calling a triple lock plus, which is the idea that they'll take pensioners out of the risk of paying income tax. OK, so Ben sits here, does all his work, but of course it all comes to life on the screen in true Blue Peter style. Here's one he made earlier. That's right.
So here's the chart. So just to sort of simplify it, first of all, this is a pledge by the Conservative Party to try and ease the tax burden on pensioners. Take us through what it actually means.
Well, so they're saying that this move, this triple lock plus, will save pensioners hundreds of pounds a year by the end of the Parliament. So we need to put that in a bit of context, though, and this is the appropriate context. This is the personal allowance you're seeing here. This is the amount up to which people can earn money, beyond which they start paying income tax. So if they're below this, they don't. And what you can see here is that it will be frozen in cash terms at around £12,500 until 2027. This is a result of a decision that Rishi Sunak and Jeremy Hunt have made in recent years. Important to recognise, Regina, this is effectively a tax rise, because as people's wages and incomes naturally go up over time, more of them will get more of their income will be dragged into this area, so they'll start paying more tax.
Before, that's the status quo.
That's right.
But
yeah. Well, let's first of all talk about what the state pension is projected to do, because this is really important. The green line is the state pension. You can see where it is at the moment, just under 12,000, and by 2027, it's projected by the Office of Budget Responsibility to be rising above the personal allowance. So that means some pensioners who previously weren't paying income tax would start paying it. A lot of pensioners have incomes which are higher than this, but if you just exist purely on the state pension, there is a risk under current projections that you would start to pay income tax where you wouldn't have previously. So what the Conservatives are proposing today is to create a new exclusive personal allowance for pensioners, which would be seen here in the red line, about £13,000, and that would be rising over the period, and that would stop those pensioners, as you can see here, having the risk of paying income tax.
So that's effectively a tax cut.
So this would be, well, this is the argument. You could argue that this is a tax cut for pensioners. You could also argue it's merely taking pensioners out of the risk of having a tax hike, which was currently what was projected. Really important as well, Rajini, this is only a proposal for pensioners. So everyone else who's earning, they would still be hit, we presume, by this flat personal allowance in cash terms. So only for pensioners, not for everyone else. They would still have this effective tax hike.
And Ben, what have the Labour Party had to say about this, or any other parties?
Well, Labour have said that this is non-credible. They've called it desperate, but importantly, they haven't said that they would match it. They are matching the triple lock, but they haven't said that they will match what the Conservatives are calling this triple lock plus. So we'll wait to see over the coming days if they do or not.
OK, thank you very much. And the nature of Ben's job means that whatever a politician might say this afternoon, we might be back here and he might be fact-checking and costing that. We just don't know, of course, but it's a very dynamic role, and there's plenty more from Ben on the BBC News website as well, of course, as on the BBC News channel. Well, there's loads of experts who work on Verify. Another one who appears on camera quite a bit is Robert Cuffe, our statistics correspondent. So, Robert, a lot of people will be watching opinion polls very closely. You, of course, one of them. Not everyone takes too much weight in polls given recent years, but we do watch them. This is a graph that you have also prepared earlier. It looks like a load of dots to me, so take us through this.
Yeah, it's a bit too much information, isn't it? It's all the polls we've seen since the last election at the end of 2019, and thankfully you don't need to be looking at this. At the BBC we're crunching all this down to pull out what the big trends are, what the averages driving the polls, and you can see there the big trends over the last Parliament, the kind of the big rises and falls at the start of lockdown, the vaccine bounce, Labour taking over around the time of Partygate, the mini budget, and really the Tories still sliding down, even though Labour are kind of in the mid-40s.
Okay,
and
let's get a bit closer in, because this is where it gets interesting, isn't it?
I think you can see, even though Labour are steady and the Tories are coming down, you can see one of the reasons why down here in that light blue you can see Reform coming up on the outside, causing more problems for the Tories to the left and to the right. So those are the trends since the last election. And of course, viewers can play with these data for themselves on bbc.co.uk/poll tracker, where we've got all the information there for people to take a look at.
What about since the election was called? What polls have we had since then?
We've had about 6 polls since then, and you can see the individual numbers here. So this is each party for each pollster, and we're seeing, you could see, like, some pollsters are giving Labour a 1-point bump. Opinions say that Tories are up by 2 since the election was called. YouGov and Techni say that Reform are up by 2 points as well since then. And you could get bounced around a lot by these ups and downs.
I mean, the key thing about this thing, just to keep it simple, because again, it looks like lots of dots, is that you'll see some showing that the parties have dropped, some saying that they've stayed the same, and some saying that they've gone up, and by very marginal amounts, +2, -2. So
I would say keep it even simpler than that. Don't worry about the individual polls, look at the average. Look at the average over all these polls of what's happened to Labour, not very much. What's changed for the Tories, not very much. The same with Reform, the Lib Dems, Greens. Really, you get bounced around too much if you focus on the details. Zoom out, take a look at those big average trend lines, and that'll tell you what's really going on. And of course, since they only finished collecting these data on Saturday, probably too early for the election campaign to have had much of an effect on people's voting intentions as they're giving it.
But
to
at the
pollsters.
moment, from what you've shown, polls still suggest that Labour's far out.
Far ahead. That 20-point gap that I showed you a couple of seconds ago, that hasn't really changed. No change really since at the end of last week.
OK, Robert Cuffe, we have many weeks left in this election, so who knows how it's going to go, but thank you for the moment. So that's Robert Cuffe, who looks at all the stats for us, our statistics correspondent. Now, you can tell it's election season because I was on a bus at the weekend and somebody had already was on a clipboard saying that they were going out to start doing the canvassing for an opinion poll company. So we really are in the thick of it, and as Robert says, it's very much early days. Well, I'm just going to complete this journey by taking us back around the newsroom. Also on this floor, I should say, the weather team sit over there. We saw Carol Kirkwood earlier walk past. So I'm just pointing. I don't know if you can see me if I give you a wave, Geeta, but that's where you are, and hopefully the camera will take us back to you.
By magic, as though by magic, across the newsroom. It's an amazing shot. Thank you very much indeed, Rajini and all the team. And we're going to be seeing lots more of all that in the coming days and weeks.